I can't believe I have another episode to get done, and X Factor 2, one of Marvel's most offbeat mutant titles. I could really use an extra set of hands around here. I'll say, did you see Vengeance? Yes. Well, nobody else did. I should be mad at that, but you are adorable. Hey, you clones, get back to work. I'm not paying you to laugh. Technically, you're not paying us at all. And I'm not the clone, you are. Bah! See ya. Yeah, my nightmares. Enjoy the show.
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek. Now, if there's one dark side to being a comic book fanboy, it's that inevitably we outlive the series we love. At least until they bring it back, because all the new books are born in derivative. I recently lost one of my favorite titles, Secret Six. It was a wonderful book about C-list villains trying to survive in a hero's world filled with razor-sharp wit and fascinating characters. Now, there is no cure for the pain I feel, but at least I have the next best thing, Peter David's X Factor.
Okay, I'm sorry, you've got absolutely no charisma, you're a vacuum of talent, and worst of all, you're just not funny. Get off the stage, you're wasting my time.
Screw you.
Please like me.
Ugh. Anyway, this X Factor is one of Marvel's many mutant teams, but unlike most of those books, they've stayed out of the recent Wolverine-Cyclops schism over on the West Coast and remained in New York, interacting with the likes of Spider-Man and Thor, while operating their own detective agency. Normally I jump right into the recap, but we're about 75 issues into this title. On top of that, this is a continuation of the Madrox Limited series, which in and of itself was a continuation of the original X Factor book. But here's a rundown of the players.
Team leader Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, who can create multiple copies of himself and does his best to hold this cult of personality together. His clones, or dupes, often represent different emotional aspects of himself. Wolfsbane, Rain Sinclair can transform into a werewolf. She recently returned to the team after being a part of X-Force and getting knocked up by an Asgardian wolf god. The events of her baby's nightmarish birth has left her believing he's dead. Strong Guy. Guido is the team's, strong guy. He was killed and unknowingly resurrected by teammate Layla. She has told no one that this act destroyed his soul. Teresa Cassidy, the former Siren, has taken on her late father's codename of Banshee. A vocally religious Irish woman, she can use a sonic scream for attacks, hypnotism, or flight. M. Monet is perfect. Smart, strong, invulnerable, able to fly, and best of all, she knows it and will let you know it. A major snob, but with a heart. Longshot. The former reality star from another dimension. He's got luck powers that twist things to his favor. Shatterstar. A warrior from Longshot's dimension. He's got an ambiguous connection to Longshot. He's not had much freedom or living in his time, so he's trying to make up for that, which puts stress on his boyfriend, Richter. Speaking of which, Richter recently had his seismic powers restored, which has changed his attitude and concerned his boyfriend. Pip the Troll. The ex-Galactic Protector is the team's current receptionist. And finally, Layla Miller. Originally introduced in the House of M, she joined the team as a child but got trapped in a dystopian future for a decade or two before returning as an adult in the present. Her claim to know things is just that, knowledge of the past that she attained in the future. Her real ability is to resurrect the dead.
All caught up? Good, there'll be a test at the end of this episode. Issue 225 open... Oh, they returned to the original numbering after they reached 200 issues of X Factor total. A gimmick I'm increasingly annoyed with in the comic book world. Anyway, issue 225 opens with a union conflict. Exciting stuff.
A businessman argues with a union over the high cost they're asking to demolish a building. Quickly giving up, the building comes down around the union thanks to the newly repowered Richter.
Wonder how Richter got his powers back? Well, I'll cover that. I am going to review Avengers: The Children's Crusade, the miniseries where Richter gets his powers back eventually, but it's a 9-issue miniseries and the last issue isn't out yet, so it's going to take me a while to get to that review, but I will get to it, so you will find out how he got his powers back if you watch that review. But, watch this review first. Don't wait a couple months for that review to come out before you watch this one. In fact, why not watch this review more than once? You'll like it. I promise. And my ratings could really... I'll just get back to the recap.
The now cowed Union agrees to go back to work as a jubilant Richter wants to tell Rain about his success, much to Shatterstar's concern. Teresa tries to bond with Rain over their loss of babies, but Rain continues to punish herself over rejecting the child after its birth. She questions why the newly arrived Layla didn't use her knowledge to help her, but all get interrupted by a pissed-off Guido who wants them to be quiet. Layla contends that she's the one who gets punished for using her powers, and hands off more ice cream to the ladies. Pip then hands off a phone call to Madrox. It's a homicide detective from his hometown of Lawrenceville, Kansas. During the recent Point One issue, the team stopped a monster there while Layla and Madrox visited his old farm, only to find a woman and her son now living there. That woman is now dead. Using Shatterstar's teleportation, they arrive at the morgue with Layla and Longshot. The woman, Sally Rowland, was beaten to death with a blunt object. Longshot tries to use his secondary power of seeing the past as it relates to what he's touching on her corpse. While he does this, Jamie confronts Layla about his suspicion that she reanimated Guido, but gets no firm answer from her. Longshot is surprised to find he's getting no reading. Something is blocking his power. The detective informs them Sally had a record of con games and bank robbery before disappearing off the radar, but the cops have no idea where to find her son Terry. All of a sudden, Sally comes back to life screaming for her boy. Layla claims she had nothing to do with it, and the unnaturally strong dead woman attacks X-Factor. Sally shakes off the multiple men before setting eyes on Layla and calling her an acolyte. She says that this business is between her and Jason, just as Shatterstar decapitates her. She manages a few more words encouraging X-Factor to stay out of this affair or risk their lives, before kissing Layla and bursting into flames. Layla assumes everyone she's fine, although it'd be better if she hadn't used a tongue.
You know, chick on chick isn't quite as hot as I thought when one of them is dead. Well, dead and possessed. Well, dead, possessed, and decapitated. Still a little hot, though.
While in Los Angeles, the LAPD are called into the scene of an apparent hate crime. An entire mob of gangbangers have all been hung, and we see one lone hooded man walking away as he drags a noose. At his childhood home, Madrox and the others investigate the crime scene. Layla redirects Madrox's request for insight. Surely he knows where to find a scared boy on his old property. They head towards the Barnes bomb shelter where Jamie hid as a child, but they still find nothing. As they wait, Shatterstar hints at a secret intimacy he shared with Layla in Latveria. But Layla tells Shatterstar that his fears of Richter not needing him, now that he has his powers back, might lead Shatterstar to unwise actions. He agrees. Longshot is still clueless as to why his telemetry is failing, so he gives himself over to his luck powers and falls on a SAG card. Back in New York, Pip likens SAG to Monet's chest and nearly gets a mouthful of boot for his troubles. Madrox points out that it stands for the Screen Actors Guild and asks Pip to use his minor cosmic abilities to point them to their next step. Banshee checks in on Richter, who's upset that he still has to do computer research. She points out that he's good at it, but he counters that he has his powers back and it reminds him of when he wasn't a mutant. She then turns it towards his strained relationship with Shatterstar, but their bickering is interrupted by a find. Sally is the ex-wife of former actor turned supernatural villain Jason Rowland, aka the Hangman. Pip's locked in on him near a bridge in LA, so Jamie sets the whole team on Jason. He splits the team up into groups of 3 and takes off with Rain and Guido, neither of which wants to talk about their recent troubles. Em walks on water, leading the Catholic Terry to ask why she never mentioned she was a Muslim until recently. Monet is a bit huffy about it, and mentions she wouldn't enjoy the constant soul-searching. Longshot points out that sounds like Terry, and now it's Banshee's turn to be miffed. Richter is eager to find the Hangman so he can cut loose, which Shatterstar points out has been his MO since getting back together with Richter. He's wanted to explore all the new things in his life. Richter gets offended at Star comparing his getting his powers back to sleeping around, and jokingly offers to have a 3-way with Layla, who accepts.
Huh. It's like they change everything around in Chasing Amy. Instead of 2 guys and a lesbian, it's 2 homosexuals and a straight woman. Instead of saying no to the 3-way, the girl says yes. Instead of being overwritten and pretentious, this is a comedy. I'm kidding, of course, but you get my point.
Madrox checks in with the other teams only to get a shock when a noose flies around his neck and lifts him up. He clicks his heels, using the kinetic impact to create dupes who try and pull him down. Meanwhile, Wolfsbane goes to cut him loose as the Hangman attacks Guido. Rain finds the rope is unbreakable as Guido accuses Jason of killing Sally and kidnapping Terry. However, the Hangman is shocked by the news and releases Jamie. The stunned Jason mentions that he promised he wouldn't hurt them. When they ask who he is, he gives the previously mentioned BB a name, Bloodbath. We then cut to the missing boy. Young Terry is running. Understandable, as he's being chased by a sword-wielding psychopath. But the shadowy killer stops just short of delivering a lethal blow. They have company. He narrates a scene change as if this were a movie script, and we follow suit, cutting to the exterior of Imperial Studios. Hangman knows his son is in there, but Bloodbath told him that if he were to enter, his son would die instantly. X-Factor wonders what's to stop him from killing Terry if they go in, and Jason tells them that BB has a twisted sense of honor and will stick to his word. They also point out that he promised not to kill Jason's wife and did anyway. Jason explains that he broke out of hell, but Bloodbath, a demon, found him and insisted he kill 500 people, already meant for damnation, to be free. He kidnapped Terry to force Jason to go along with this. Teresa wonders why. Layla explains that souls have power, and Bloodbath has been taking a commission of this from the Hangman's murders. This is how he reanimated and possessed Sally's body. The now quick-to-anger Guido gets tired of talking and bursts into the studio, while the rest of X-Factor follows. Except for Longshot, who just wants to make sure Hangman had nothing to do with David Carradine's death.
Promise me if I die in an autofixation-related accident, you'll tell my parents I was actually murdered by a supervillain working for a demon. Thank you.
M asks Layla where to find Bloodbath. She gets all vague, explaining this is a junction point where things could go one of several ways. Besides, they don't find Bloodbath. He finds them.
Pa 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 ch 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 ah ah ah. Pa 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 ch 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 ah ah ah.
Ooh. Sure enough, Bloodbath then arrives in a costume that's part Catwoman from Batman Returns and part Lou Gossett Jr. from Enemy Mine. Layla throws up a force field, and Bloodbath puts his hand right through it. Shatterstar goes after BB, while Rain smells the boy and takes one of Madrox's dupes to go find him. Bloodbath breaks Star's sword, but Banshee and Richter throw him into a wall and then bring it down on him. Terry, meanwhile, has found a gun, but of course freaks out when someone shouts, "Aha!" and fires. He hits Madrox's dupe dead center. Jamie feels his dupe die and wonders if there's really an afterlife, when the only proof of it is demons like Bloodbath. Bloodbath, meanwhile, throws out a wave of energy meant to paralyze X-Factor and steal their souls. Of course, he wasn't expecting Strong Guy to not have a soul, leaving the Bruiser free to grind him into paste. Rain brings out the stunned boy, and everything seems okay. Except Bloodbath has moved into Jamie's dead dupe and skewers Madrox. There's a moment of blackness, and then Jamie wakes up in a hotel room. Layla is there, and so is he, both dressed for a wedding, both covered in blood. The other Jamie whispers, "Don't let Rain get away," before dying. Cut back to X-Factor as the verbose Bloodbath narrates the "previously on X-Factor" moment. The team questions if it was a dupe that died or the real Jamie, only for Layla to break down and blubber that this wasn't supposed to happen. Rain sends Terry to his waiting father before turning wolf and going after the demon. Banshee throws a sonic attack that BB deflects onto Rain, also taking out Richter. Guido grabs him and Longshot throws a dozen or so of his razor knives at the dupe. It isn't until one hits him in the brain that he stops his verbal barrage. However, Bloodbath has simply jumped back into his first body, which he heals before asking for his sword back. Shatterstar tries to oblige, but the demon blocks the attacks before asking why the team isn't curious as to why Guido wasn't affected by his magic. Just as the team is about to attack this one, M calls for them to stop, recognizing something is wrong with Strong Guy. While some question that this might not be the time, Bloodbath insinuates Layla knows the answers.
So a demon just murdered your friend and leader, but you've decided to stop everything in the middle of a battle to ask why one of your teammates was able to defeat said murdering monster? Priorities!
Terry makes it out to his father, who tries to get away with his son. But Terry wants his dad to help X-Factor. After all, his late mother told him how he's really a superhero. Guido calls BS on Bloodbath's talk, who implied Layla could resurrect Madrox. Layla cops to it, however, and Guido tells her to bring Jamie back, but she admits the process destroys the person's soul. She asks if anyone will stop her before stopping herself. Surprisingly, it's the religious Banshee who says bring him back, and Monet who says no. The demon forestalls any further discussion by running at the group of mutants with his funny-looking sword. He even stabs through himself to try and take out Rain. Things are looking bad for the team. They are grossly overpowered. Then, Hangman drops his noose around the demon's neck, hoisting him up so Shatterstar can decapitate him. Of course, the demon then jumps back into Jamie's body, mocking the team that he simply can't be stopped, until Layla admits she's been focusing her mind and channeling her energy for this. She begins speaking in Latin, exorcising the demon from Madrox's corpse and sending him back to hell. Em and Banshee start arguing over Madrox's resurrection, but Layla screams at them to be quiet. It's too late. As we cut to Jamie Madrox standing over his and Layla's corpses, we hear Layla tell X-Factor, Jamie's gone.
Mutants, demons, and alternate realities. Oh my. That's X-Factor for you. So let's take a look at what happened. Was this an original story or just a cheap copy of what's come before? See what I did there?
The best thing about this title is that it's somewhat independent of the mutant scene. It's not immersed in the recent schism. In fact, X Factor has barely crossed over with the other mutant titles over the last few years. This is nice because it means the book isn't held down by constantly tackling mutant rights issues like they do in some of the other titles. And we don't have the team constantly fighting Apocalypse or Magneto over and over again. X Factor actually got to interact with the Marvel Universe a bit, and recent issues have guest starred Thor, Spider-Man, and the Black Cat. Earlier, I compared the book to Secret Six, and I can only tell you that I meant that in the best way. Peter David, like Gail Simone, is that rare writer who can handle writing for a large team and find the time to give each character his own storyline and unique voice. No one in this story arc gets lost in the shuffle. Banshee and Wolfsbane get a nice chance to bond in this story. Guido's growing temper and impulsiveness are causing everyone concern, and the Richter-Shatterstar relationship is played for equal parts pathos and comedy. While Longshot and Monet are used in this story mostly for comedic effect. Monet still gets some serious moments when discussing her religion. Jamie is mostly the team's straight man and the book's narrator, giving it a slight noir feel, which works well with the book's detective agency theme. The best character, though, is without a doubt Layla Miller. She's a bit of a deus ex machina at times, causing or resolving problems out of the blue, but this is tempered by the fact that she's a real person. She has to live with this knowledge and the consequences of using it or holding it back, and that makes her fascinating to watch, especially when things go wrong and she's caught off guard. I did feel a bit underwhelmed by the villain. While I was glad the demon wasn't constantly talking about hellfires and souls, the whole jabbering for comedic effect was a bit Deadpool-esque for my taste. I didn't find Bloodbath to be either scary or intimidating. Beyond characterization, the writing is top-notch. The plot is usually full of good twists, so you're never bored or able to predict where it's going. It also remains fairly logical, so there's never any huge leap of faith required to get to your ending.
Also, Peter David excels at writing sharp and funny dialogue. I usually find myself grinning from ear to ear when I'm reading X Factor. That's if I'm not just laughing out loud.
Now, if the book has had one drawback overall, it's that the artist team has never been consistent. So while the artists usually have been excellent, the title has never had the star power it deserves on art, and the focus is all on Peter David's scripts. That having been said, Leonard Kirk is one of my all-time favorite artists, having had successful runs on fan-favorite titles like JSA and The Agents of Atlas. He brings the right level of name power to this book, and even though he only drew these 4 issues, Kirk is already on board for future comics. Here's hoping he stays, as he draws attractive men and women, interesting villains, and handles action scenes and body language expertly. This only enhances the quality of this book.
In short, X Factor is one of those titles you should be reading. The backstory at this point is a little intimidating, but by all means, go pick up those back issues. They're a great read with usually fantastic art. I give X Factor, issues 225 through 228, 1 star. But these are mutant stars. You hit them, and they double. You take 2 stars, hit them again, and you get up to 4. I'd hit it again, but my scale doesn't go up to 8. So 4 stars for X Factor. Hoping this review of Multiple Man and his teammates has inspired you to watch multiple episodes of comic book issues on The Last Angry Geek. I'll see you back here next time on Comic Book Issues. Just awful. And how can you be the Last Angry Geek when I'm here? I'm going to murder you when the credits come on. How's that? Ew.
Since the dawn of man is really not that long, as every galaxy was formed in less time than it takes to sing this song. A fraction of a second and the elements were made. The bipeds stood up straight, the dinosaurs all met their fate. They tried to leave but they were late and they all died. They closed their asses off. The oceans in Pangea, see you would